Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Dedicated to the Craft podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lozano, and the darkest of days are upon us, people. We are bringing back Victory at Sea Days. We're not bringing it back. We're actually bringing back Victory at Sea Day, and we're making it a week-long celebration. You see, we had to cancel it last year for obvious reasons, and we were so bummed about it that we were wondering how we could make it up to everybody once it's safe to bring back this iconic celebration around our Imperial Porter Victory at Sea. And so we're doing that. So February 28th through Sunday, March 7th, you're able to purchase tickets to partake in a festival of a variety of different Victory at Seas. We got Victory at Sea Mexican hot chocolate, Victory at cereal, Captain Crunch in there. We got Victory at Sea with Oreo, double shot Victory at Sea, Reaper, Cussive Victory at Sea. That one's going to be hot. We got extra limited premium reserve Victory at Sea. I don't even know what that is. Vegan strawberry smoothie Victory at Sea. What? And then, of course, our barrel-aged Victory at Sea. And you get your options of two different packages. So for the cheaper package, you'll receive an iconic Victory at Sea Days glass. You'll receive a limited edition Victory at Sea neck gaiter. You're going to get some really cool coasters. And of course, you're going to get 4 of our different varieties of Victory at Sea, all including that package. Now, for $10 extra, you can upgrade, and then we hit you with a nice little gold coin. For you, those of you that are not watching, I'm holding up a really cool Victory at Sea Day gold coin that you can redeem for a 4-pack of our High West barrel-aged Victory at Sea. So get them while they're hot because they're going quick. Anyways, so with that all said, I'm going to bring you into today's episode, which is with Colby Chandler and Arne Holt. Now, Arne Holt owns Caffe Calabria, a local San Diego roaster that created a proprietary blend for Victory at Sea. So without him, this beer wouldn't be what it is. Without Colby, this beer wouldn't be what it is. So I get to sit down with both of them. And if you were ever wondering or curious about what Victory at Sea is, where it came from, where it's gone, what we're going to do, this is the episode to listen to. There's a lot to unpack here, and we do it all over Victory at Seas. So it gets pretty toasty pretty quickly, but it was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy. Hope to see you at one of the Victory at Sea days. Cheers, guys. Arne Holt. Hello, sir.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. This is an awesome episode because you've been a part of Ballast Point for a long time, and there's no doubt about it. Victory at Sea is one of our most popular, most iconic beers. Not only that we produce, but that people drink. They love it, and they love it so much that we devoted a whole celebration towards it, and we call it Victory at Sea Day. And for the last 6 years, every Sunday before Christmas, we have called it the darkest day in San Diego or whatever it is, but it's an opportunity for everybody that's a fan of the beer to come into our locations and enjoy this beautiful mashup of beer and what you do, which is roast coffee. And this year it's a little bit different. And we weren't able to do it in 2020. So in 2021, we're bringing back Victory at Sea Days, and we're actually going to turn that one-day celebration into a week-long celebration where there's a variety of different interpretations of the iconic beer. But before we even get to that, let's talk about its origins. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about your coffee roasting business, and then we can go into how we got involved.
Right. Well, I grew up in Seattle, worked restaurants, watched the whole latte craze start in Seattle, and everyone in Seattle thought, these coffee carts were all over the country, and they weren't. It was really respective to the Puget Sound area. And my grandmother lived in San Diego, so I was down on a February day in her honor, and Santa Anas were blowing, 85 degrees, sunny, and I put on flip-flops and shorts and a T-shirt. And when I left Seattle, it was, miserable. And I said, I'm moving. Then a few days later, I went to go find a latte. Couldn't find one anywhere in San Diego. And the light bulb went off. So I opened a coffee cart at Grossmont Hospital, 91, and then Kaiser Hospital and a few more coffee carts, started roasting coffee, and that's kind of the origins of Calabria. And then moved up to North Park 20 years ago, 2000, I guess, and did all the roasting up here. So getting into how Victory at Sea kind of came about, Kaiser Hospital, one of the directors of nutrition services, he brewed beer, did a lot of home brew, and he was doing a stout. And he called me and I said, hey, bring it by the shop. Let me put some shots of espresso in it. He's like, no, bring it to work. I'm like, no, it's got to go in fresh. So he brings by a bunch of 22s. So some of them we put one shot in, some of them 2 shots, some of them 3 shots. 6 weeks later, he shows back up and that beer was unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I like coffee in one hand, beer in another. I don't like coffee beers, to be honest with you. And I was like, wow, this stuff's really good. And at that time, North Park, this is probably almost 20 years ago, because I think, Colby, when did we start this? 17 years ago, 16 years ago?
2006 was the first.
Okay, so 15 years ago. All right.
Yeah.
So Ryan Glenn was coming into the cafe every day. You probably were too at time to time. It seems like every brewmaster was in North Park, living there at that time.
Jeff Brancato too, I think, came in a lot.
Well, all the guys from Stone. I mean, every brewery in San Diego, they're all coming in, getting their lattes on their way to work. And I'd flip them 5 pounds of coffee to take to the brewery. And Calabria had this back room with 20 cases of beer at all times, stockpiled from every different brewery. Yeah, I started talking to Ryan, let's do this. Let's do a coffee stout. And took about 3 years, but he got Colby's ear, and Colby's like, yeah, let's do it. And so Colby and Jesse Fox did the first inception, I guess. And, jump in anytime you want, Colby, and clarify.
Well, Jesse Fox at that time was your roaster?
Yeah, he did all the roasting, yeah. And
I mean, that's when Caffe Calabria, basically, you got that Italian roaster, right?
Well, it's German, but
German.
yeah, no, it's it is so authentic Italian in there. It's not even funny. The German roasters are better than the Italians. Anything I buy Italian, and I've bought Italian cars, I always say, best thing about it, it's Italian. Worst thing about it, it's Italian. I stay away from the Italian roasters, but.
Yeah, we had a lot of employees that were kind of living in North Park and digging on the coffee, and we were putting coffee in existing beers, specifically Sextant Stout, the Sextant Oatmeal Stout. So we put the coffee in it, and we just never got the good blend, or I don't know. I mean, it was really good, but it just was kind of missing something. And we had been doing a lot of experimentation with kind of new styles of beers. That's right when Even Keel and Sculpin and Fathom and, all those kind of Renaissance beers were being made. And we didn't have a winter warmer. And we were just like, we want a seasonal winter beer, something on the strong side. We really love the coffee. And we were just like, well, everybody's doing coffee stouts. We had been doing Black Marlin Porter forever. So we basically were just like, well, let's do an Imperial Porter. I don't think there's many of those on the market. We were all about, doing new beers basically and not stepping on the toes of anybody else. Super inspired by Speedway Stout and what they were doing with Bryan Brothers Coffee, and called them up to get their kind of techniques and what they did. And I think they were doing more hot side additions for the coffee. And Jesse came over, and kind of before he sat down, we talked about using the bitterness from the coffee to kind of substitute some of the bitterness for the hops. Right. So we could go a little bit lower on the hops depending on how much, acidity and acridness and all that kind of goes together. And he kind of blended together some, Costa Rican.
Well, as Jesse brought it back, I remember it pretty clearly. Yeah, and we worked on the blend, and it just was a very simple Costa Rican Colombian blend.
Yep. Kind of a clean but nutty, almost woodsy.
Clean, nutty, bright, lively. Yeah, a little bit sweet.
Full city roast,
Full city roast, yeah. That's where the sugars get caramelized.
Mm-hmm. And then Jesse was cold brewing it. We kind of decided on amounts and eventually just ramped up the recipe and, added a little bit of vanilla because every winter warmer needs a little spice in there, and the 10% definitely warmed you up on those cold San Diego winter days when you can see your breath.
All the way up in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
those cold days of 62 degrees.
I saw my breath the other day, man. It happens.
What flavor was that vape?
Yeah, there you go.
Not coffee. So yeah, I mean that's kind of how it came about, and it was a good addition to the robust series that we were doing with Dorado and Sea Monster, and it kind of came a winter staple, and it's just kind of been around ever since. It's a beautifully aged beer. It takes aging very well, whether it's in your garage or cold or
look at that
7 to 8 years. It's about perfect.
Look, and there's various ways.
But that's kind of how it all got started.
That's an amazing story about how you all came together, because it was organic. I mean, that's as organic as you can possibly get. One, Ballast Point is looking to do something that's not being done and doing it well. And then you're over there looking, right? Arne, you're looking for somebody to make a coffee beer with Caffe Calabria. And, you're looking, we're doing something new. It's not forced. It's not being pushed, maybe a little bit by you to Ryan, but then, it was a really organic creation, and it's one of the best beers that we make because of all the effort that you both put into your particular craft. Kobe with the understanding of how the ingredients in the beer works, and then you knowing how the coffee works, and it's beautiful, man. This is like art. This is complete art.
Colby, I've got a question for you, and clarify. It seems to me though that when we did the first collaboration, the first version of Victory at Sea, that I got inspired. Starbucks and Red Hook did a coffee stout, and it didn't go anywhere. And I was talking to Ryan. I think we were the first ones out of the gate with Victory at Sea, with all the craft breweries and roasters anywhere in the country or in the world, and everyone followed our suit and started collaborating. Tell me if I'm wrong on that, but
like I said, Speedway was with Ryan Brothers.
Right.
We started doing Victory at Sea, but yeah, I mean, they definitely wasn't a lot on the market. My parents, lived in Seattle, so I was familiar with that. The Red Hook and the owner of Starbucks, they were friends.
Yeah,
is how that beer kind of came about.
Well, the original
about organic
bought or started Red Hook.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot on the market. There definitely wasn't coffee IPAs, that's for sure.
No, not at all.
And most were stouts. That's why it was kind of cool for us to, when you put in the roasted barley, that's little, acrid, to say the least. That's what kind of gives the stout the coffee bite. The porter style just seemed to lend itself. I actually looked up some recipes here because it kind of changed throughout the years. We were getting Jesse to cold brew it at Caffe Calabria.
Yeah.
And then basically put it into corner kegs, and then that's how we were adding it. And I think they were doing that at Scripps, right, Jeff? Like they were doing, but it went from a cold to kind of a warm extraction.
Started grinding it and throwing the hop bag or the bag in the mash or something like that.
No, well, it was a separate vessel, right?
It was a cold steep in the beginning, and then at some point it changed to, we were literally dry coffeeing the beer, which is to say, we were throwing the actual coffee grind into the fermenter. Okay. And we were really happy with that technique. But when I first started, they were still doing it the other way, which was
that was the third version, throwing it directly into the beer. But there was some heat in there at some point on some of those batches.
Well, I remember
looking through the recipes anyway. It says it in here. So
I remember the third version, and that was the one. All the judges at GABF said that this is a little too vanilla forward. And like I said, I usually like coffee in one hand, beer in another. And that beer was so quaffable and so dangerous.
Yeah.
There were many a morning I swore off drinking after having a few 22s of that.
I'm going to swear off it after this conversation.
Yeah.
Victory always did good at like the county fairs, the LA and California State Fair and the Golds at San Diego County Fair a bunch of times. But the World Beer Cup and GABF were always hard because of the category, because the judges couldn't get past that there was vanilla in it.
Oh, got it.
And if you put it in the herb and spice category, then the judges would dink you for having coffee in it and say you're in the wrong category. So there was never any real category for Victory at Sea, and I don't think there is still to this day. I'm not sure. They might have done a
specialty
coffee
beer or a coffee beer,
herb beer or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but, and it's all over the place. So there's not anything that's too specific when it comes to an imperial porter, let's say, with coffee.
Right. It's not a stout. It's a strong dark ale with coffee and herbs.
Yeah. Now, one of the cool things about Victory at Sea is you pick up especially if you find the older versions of it, it has those old Victory at Sea labels that are super cool, but they have the Caffe Calabria emblem on our label. Now, most people would look at that and say, "Oh, cool, they use that coffee," but actually, this is a proprietary blend for that beer, right, Arne?
Correct. Oh, there's the original one. I love it. Yeah, definitely. We made it specifically for Ballast Point, and
look at that. If you're not watching, by the way, Colby and I are holding up some old school Victory at Sea labels, and this one says Victory at Sea Batch 17, and there's the cafe. There's your logo right there. But like I said, most people think that you use some of that coffee. That's kind of cool. It's local, but you went a step further.
Well, no, I mean, it was just a great organic collaboration. But the really cool thing was Ballast Point sent it one of those first batches, if not the first, to like a beer circle in Belgium. They gave it rave reviews. It got this cult following immediately and just took off with this cult following. There was a barista who used to work at Calabria who started brewing in Rhode Island. And I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, Victory at Sea Day, she, calls me up and says, people are lined up at the bar at 6 a.m. to get Victory at Sea, takes pictures of these ads saying Ballast Point, Caffe Calabria. And I was just stoked for all the props. But, and I think we had the very first Victory at Sea party at Calabria. And it was a charitable event. And we were shocked. I don't know what we did, 150, 200 tickets, and it sold out in like an hour. And I was just kind of shocked that so many people were into that beer.
Yeah, then we did the first Man the Victory at Sea Fleet event at Hamilton's. With
right. So before it was
Karen
called Victory at Sea
Scott.
Day, that's what it was called, right?
Before Ballast Point took it. It was called Man the Victory at Sea Fleet. So we do 12 versions. You get little muffin baking dish with 6 different varieties in it. You can either have one or the other. Get a little sampler. Back when you could share beers.
Yeah.
And they would definitely sell out, line up. It was always a good time to kind of figure out what varieties to do, what kind of barrel aged stuff we had around. That's where it totally first started.
Yeah.
How many people were coming into Caffe Calabria trying to get that beer, Arne?
Well, we just had a beer and wine license then, and there were always people coming in and buying it, but we weren't really a bar or So our identity, we've evolved throughout the years. I mean, we're really a true Italian cafe now. We're there's a full bar and taps lined up. So I just bought a keg the other day, and we just got it hooked up. So we'll start pouring again next week, I guess. Victor at Sea.
Your spot is amazing. I love it down here in our local neighborhood called North Park here in San Diego. And, you know, you've really taken your coffee passion and you've honed it really, really well. You walk in, everything, you cut no corners. So that's a big part of why Victor at Sea works so well, is that your product is so good and the blend was just so perfect. And I want everybody to know a little bit more about thinking about coffee infusion to like home brewers out there, people that are looking, even brewers that are looking to make coffee beers. Colby, what's important to know about adding coffee to a beer, any beer?
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier with just cold. I think cold brewing is probably the most important thing. When you don't put the heat on it, you don't get the bitterness as much out of the coffee. And more importantly, I think the stability is amazing.
I would agree.
You know, a lot less oxidation involved over storage. It's amazing how well that beer stands up. And it does start to oxidize a little bit, but in a good way. You know what I mean? Where it kind of adds to the flavor of all the beer. And, you know, in the beginning, it's definitely a beer, but as you age it out, it blends into a coffee, beer, vanilla. You know, it balances out very nicely, and the bitterness kind of falls off, and it gets a richness to it. And yeah, I think if you're going to add it to it, I would add it, you know, post fermentation. If you're clean and sanitary with your equipment, usually the roasted coffee has very little bacteria on it, if any. So it's, you know, almost as safe, I think, as hops are, depending on how they're handled and how they're put through the machines and stuff like that. You know, compared to cocoa nibs, we're just full of bacteria. You know, would be another example of what not to do. You don't really dry hop with cocoa beans, but the coffee, putting it in coarse grind, I would say. You know, the more you can keep the friction off the grind, the better. And like you said, you know, we had good luck with just putting it directly into the beer.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you maybe rack on a secondary, you know, with the coffee, and then once it's got the color and the flavor you need, you rack it again clean into a keg, let it settle.
Yeah, it's just such a well-balanced, perfect beer, but it kind of hits all the marks, right? Because it's balanced, it's big, the alcohol kind of adds to its aging qualities, or it aids in aging. And you know, I'm drinking the barrel-aged version right now, and there's no better storage vessel than a beautiful oak barrel that is just over time just enhancing what's already there, subduing what might be a little bit too aggressive or astringent. I mean, the vanillins that are naturally occurring in that wood, it's just such a gorgeous beer. It might be my favorite out of all the Victor at Sea varieties that we've made. The barrel-aged version is by far my favorite, and that's what I'm sipping on right now.
And we still have plenty for sale. And it's how old is it? Almost 3 years old now, right?
I think so. You know, I shout out
looking
to
at the bottom of the bottle.
Shout out to our barrel aging team that we once had over at Trade Street. Steve, Alex, and Will. They were the masters of basically harnessing this beer, plenty others, but Victor at Sea, and making sure that they were playing well with the barrels. And I was able to, fortunately enough, do a 6-month run over there at the barrel aging facility, and it's just beautiful. It really is it's just another world. It's not brewing. It's not coffee roasting. It's waiting. Okay, that's good. Let's blend and stuff like that. So it really is up to the refined palate and whatever that means, right? But this particular batch of barrel-aged beers is amazing. What was it? How old was it, Colby?
3.5 years.
It's beautiful.
It was bottled on that date, but you got to remember it was brewed and in the barrel 6 to 8 months before it goes into the bottle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're actually looking at, you know, summer of 17. So
Wow,
not too bad. Not bad.
So beer
15,
always gets
$15 a 4-pack.
Yeah. And it's still available. You can still get it. And
I had to start with a spring break beer.
Oh no, I'm not
Tell
cutting
me
the
about
corners,
that
bro.
beer.
There's
I've been
time.
stuck too much in North Park. What do you guys got going with the Padres?
It's just Friar's Ale we've been doing with them for the past couple days.
Yeah.
The official beer of the Padres, just a nice drinking pale ale.
Yeah. The official craft beer of the Padres, and
part of charitable foundations and all kinds of different kind of ideas around it. And it's just been really good. I don't know. It's good, easy drinking.
Ballpark beer, man.
Well, yeah,
Simcoe. Lots of Simcoe.
Throw some Coke in there.
If they'd let us back in the ballpark, I would be throwing back a few of those.
They're threatening. Emails are going around.
Well, I one other thing, this coffee roasting's been such a fun adventure for projects like Victory at Sea, a couple other projects, but I do the coffee for day games in the clubhouse for the Padres.
Nice.
Day games, they get in at like 9 a.m. They get their coffee, get their breakfast, start working out. So clubhouse managers have been really, really good to me. I just go in and do it pro bono. It's been fun seeing that from the inside out, I guess. And diehard Padre fan and diehard Mariner fan as well. So.
It sounds like it'd be easier for you to get us in then.
Yeah, we know a guy now.
Well, if they open it back up, we'll find out.
Yeah. So we got this beautiful blend of your product and our beer, and it's doing really well. People are lining up at 6 a.m. to get a 10%er, and it's just evolved from there. Victory at Sea Day, spawning off of that Hamilton's event, and Ballast Point making its own thing. Now we're at this point where people are expecting once a year we roll out a day where we make a variety of different variations of Victory at Sea. And one of the things that I like to point out, and we can talk about it, is just how well suited a beer like this is to play with just this large spectrum of different flavors, anywhere from cereal, literally Captain Crunch, to rum, to red wine barrels, to Carolina Reapers. Like, why is it so good with everything?
That's a question for Colby. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you have all the bases, right? The coffee, if you just think of how many flavors Starbucks has and probably how many flavors Arne has, you know what I mean? It's all of those flavors can really just kind of smoothly transpose into Victory at Sea. Then you start playing off the vanilla a little bit. I mean, you can go all the way from, pumpkin pie spice to full on mole with, 12 ingredients and sesame seeds and everything in it, because those flavors, that coffee, that vanilla, the bitterness, as far as tactile flavors, those are all bridge flavors to a lot of, great pairings. And we always kind of joke that, those types of beers are beer pairings in the same bottle. It's like a beer and food pairing all in one bottle for you. So if you kind of look at it that way, in order to create the beer, what do I want to drink this beer with, and how can I infuse that flavor into the beer? Then that's kind of the basis of how it all got started.
Well, now that you explained it, I would agree. Because I remember when Calm Before the Storm came out, which is a totally different beer from Victory at Sea, totally different flavors. They came up, and I remember we used a lot of Ethiopian in there because you get a lot of citrus in Yirgacheffe, a lot of lemon, and so it's like, bring up the beer, let's sit down, do a cupping, and literally we just start pouring coffee into the beer and start tasting it. Not rocket science, and it's like, ooh, this is pretty good. Let's go with this, and God, I love that beer. That beer is phenomenal.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, Colby, Calm Before the Storm. What beer was that?
Oh, that was a light coffee cream ale, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So light in color. A lot of people like to refer them as blonde stouts because the roasted flavor that you would get from the stout, like we were talking about earlier, is now getting it from the coffee. So it's kind of a mind furk.
Yeah, well, it was
furking.
Yeah. Well, it was a mind furk, and because it was a summer coffee beer, and which most people don't associate with. But oh my God, that beer I thought was just it is phenomenal.
Do you remember all the different variants of Victory at Sea?
I remember when we had the party at Calabria, how many versions you brought up. The first Victory at Sea party, I think it was. Probably the second year in production, maybe the third, probably the second. You guys brought up so many cask versions, different barrel aged versions. Yeah, I was working. I was just trying to make sure everything ran well. So,
and sneaking some tasters.
I got drunk at the same time, so no, I don't remember all the versions.
You're not supposed to remember much after Victory at Sea party.
Yeah, I usually don't.
Here, I'll go through a couple. Peanut Butter Cup, Victory at Sea. Kahlua, Victory at Sea. Mole, Victory at Sea. Bourbon, Maple, Oak, Victory. Victory at Cereal, that's with the non-crunch berry Captain Crunch. I like the orange candy one. So you do cocoa nibs, orange peel, fresh ginger root. Peppermint was always a big one. Jamaica. So you're doing coconut, cascabels, ghost peppers, habaneros. Fennel and orange. Actually, that was one of my favorites, I think.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah.
That sounds pretty good.
And then, all the different varietals, pumpkin spice. It just keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah, I remember Victory at Cereal. I had no idea what the hell was going on. I walk into the brewery and there's 20 boxes of non-berry Captain Crunch. And I'm like, what? What is this? Like, are we assembling some, feeding an organization? Like, are we supporting something here? What's going on? No, we're throwing that into a beer. I was like, what the hell? Why would you do that? And it was phenomenal.
My favorite cereal in the world.
Yeah.
Captain Crunch. I love it.
Beer, cereal, and you don't like rip the top of your gums. Like it doesn't destroy your palate. It was very interesting. And that was my first Victory at Sea variant that I was exposed to. And I was just intrigued, man. And then mole was a big one for me. I wasn't able to understand what the brewers were doing, what the cask makers were doing. And it ended up working. Not all of them worked, but a lot of them did. Most of them did.
Cool thing about Ballast Point is, they had free will to experiment, and do crazy, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to see the results.
I found the press release from the Caffe Calabria event. Caffe Calabria Cafe unveils new beer is the name of it. And it was Monday, March 9th, 2009. The birth of a new local beer. So that was when we probably started bottling. It was 2009.
Yeah, well.
So we were releasing it. You got the release in bottles for the first time.
Yeah, but you guys brought a lot of versions with you, and I had no idea that you were doing different versions at that time.
Right. Your quote was, "A small brewery and a small roast company were a perfect fit."
Well, I think that was right after the earthquake in Haiti, and Ian from the Tornado jumped in, and I think all the money went to Haitian relief.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
Yeah, I was just talking to Ryan about that the other day. Actually, it came up in a conversation.
Yeah. Well, props to Ryan Glenn.
Yeah.
He helped bridge this whole thing.
Right. Yeah. So Ryan Glenn, shout out. He was the one that you were hammering with this idea. I mean, you were hammering every brewer that was coming in, but it sounds as though that you were kind of really. You saw something in Ryan. You saw something in Ryan that was gonna.
Well, Ryan was in every day. My heart was set on Ballast Point. There was this common bond that just in the attitude of the people, Ryan, Colby, and the people that I'd met. I'd met Jack once or twice is about it. And then, met you, Steph, and Mike Mello way back in the day. And Ballast Point was just so great to work with, so giving, so about pumping up the craft. There's a big difference between coffee and brewing. All right, so you walk into a bar and you can have anywhere from 10 handles to 50. Right, so every local brewer's got a representation for the most part, if you're strong and you're good. You walk into a cafe, you got one roaster. So to have the synergy in coffee, we're friendly enemies, so to speak, in coffee. And San Diego was so good because the Brewers Guild used to have some of the meetings at Calabria way back in the day. I'll tell you another story. I'm in Germany at a trade show for packaging, and I need to find a packaging machine that will wrap labels around a coffee tin. And I never knew they existed. So I get there, I find one. I'm in an Italian booth, and the guy that greets me says, "Oh, San Diego is just there." I said, "What were you doing in San Diego?" He goes, "I was at the Brewers Guild." I'm like, "Oh, well, how was it?" And it was down in Mission Valley at the time, at one of those, town and country convention center or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Well, it was more for the trade." I said, "Well, did you have my beer?" And he goes, "What beer is that?" I said, "Well, Ballast Point's Victory at Sea. That was, a lot of my inspiration." He goes, "No." But this guy must have been 2010 in Dusseldorf, Germany, Italian guy. I'm in Dusseldorf, Germany from San Diego, Italian guy in a booth in Dusseldorf, Germany, is very aware of what is going on in San Diego brewing at the time. And it was the full circle of all the brewers that said, let's, right, high tide raises all boats. And my hats are off to the San Diego brewers for taking that approach and doing that, because what came from that is pretty amazing,
Well, most people
amazing.
Most people forget that San Diego Beer Week started at Caffe Calabria.
Well, I forgot that too.
Because that's the meeting that we had there.
Okay.
When Greg Cook showed up and Chris Kramer, and then it was the guild officers and stuff. And basically, like Jeff Mach and the guys over at Blind Lady wanted to do a North Park San Diego Beer Week. Greg wanted to do a North County. Kramer was on, like the city hotel board. So he wanted to do more of a county-wide. I had already been to Philly Beer Week twice and San Francisco Beer Week once. And I was the president of the guild. So I was all in to do any beer week. So I just kind of wrangled everybody together. And we sat at Caffe Calabria and just kind of hashed it out. And that was the birth of San Diego Beer Week.
Wow. Very
Dude,
cool.
Arnie, what's up, man? Your spot. It's
well, I've always been a pioneer
history.
In doing things my whole life. No, it was just, I saw the synergy amongst those brewers. And I'm like, at that point in time, we weren't open at night. And I'm like, my place is your place. Anything you want to do here. Honestly, I think I flipped Colby the keys and said, "I'm going to Tornado," Yeah, and they had their meeting. I was a bystander watching and had a small part in this one little beer. Not one little beer. It's a beer that really, took
off.
Made an impact. Yeah. But no, it's been so cool to see not just one brewery, a whole industry coming together and lifting each other up. And, these guys aren't hacks. They know their shit, and watching them pour their passion into those beers. It's been amazing.
Was it reminiscent of your own feelings towards coffee roasting and stuff?
Without
a lot of that appreciation came from what you felt just in a different industry, but similar to the nerves that it hits.
Oh yeah, I mean, Calabria is filled with passion, and my passion. I remember having a shot of espresso one day, way back in the day when I started, and everyone was pulling 2-ounce shots, 1.5 ounces, and they suck, and I did. And then my grind wasn't right, and I had a little 3/4 ounce ristretto, and I wasn't roasting yet. I was buying coffee out of Seattle, Muckle Teal Roasting Company. And I said, "Oh my God, this is so chocolatey and so good." But it was that American mentality that I had to break, that more is better. Can you supersize this? Do you want to supersize it? Do you want, the super big gulp, the super tanker? It's Americans are the grand consumer, and everything's supposed to be ginormous Costco, and Europeans are much more refined, and less is more a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I found out in coffee, and the passion that I had for coffee was definitely coinciding with not just one brewery, a lot of them in San Diego. And these guys are so into what they do. And, they're book smart too, man. They get it. And it's so cool to have been witness to it, I guess.
Did you get into beer? Did you get a lot more into beer after you started, let's say, the collaboration with Ballast Point? Did it make you much more of a beer connoisseur?
Well, I grew up in Seattle, and my neighbor was the driver for Red Hook, which was the first microbrewery there. And Fritz Maytag had Anchor Steam in San Francisco, which is probably the first microbrewery on the West Coast. Red Hook second. I don't know, Colby, correct me if I'm wrong. So I saw it happen in Seattle when Red Hook Ale came out. And then I remember having Pyramid Hefeweizen and Full Sail Golden Ale, and those two beers. I drink lighter beers typically. I used to drink a lot of Sierra Nevada. But those two beers were so unique and so incredible. I became very much a beer. I was always a beer fan in Seattle, but I started seeing craft going into it prior to coming to San Diego. And so I wasn't blind to it by any means. And I just, I watched these guys from the sidelines, so to speak, and just the amount of respect was absolutely incredible.
Here's a full circle moment. My parents lived on Whidbey Island. When you said Mukilteo, they lived up in Coopville for many, decades. And
I had 20 acres on Whidbey Island. I just sold.
Yep. She just sold her house too, not too long ago. And one of the things that I loved about Red Hook was they kind of reminded me a lot of how Ballast Point became, because I was doing a tour in there one time and they were literally putting Captain Crunch into a beer.
Well,
so that kind of always stuck in my head. So, when we started doing the varietals, I'm like, man, Captain Crunch, I know that would be it. Like that would be one of the varietals. I don't even know if I came up with that. I can't even say that
I think it was Alex Tweet, if I'm not mistaken, from
right. But when he said that he was doing that, I'm like, then I told him the Red Hook story. I'm like, I've been waiting to do that. Awesome. So it was cool.
Well, I saw Red Hook at its inception. I was 16 years old, and they had a very small brewery on Leary Way in Ballard. Tiny. They had 2 copper kettles in there. I went into the brewery before they opened because my neighbor, and saw what they were doing. Didn't really know much about it, but had to try one, and I remember being out to dinner with my mom, and I was 16 years old, and I said, I'll have a Red Hook, and they served me. It's
I spent a lot of time in Trolleyman's Pub.
Oh yeah. I
with
love
the fire,
that
with the fireplace and the acoustic guitar player. Man, it was so awesome. And now, it's a chocolate factory now, and it's right across. It's right across the street from Brower's, which is one of my favorite beer bars in the world.
Well, Ballard is blown up, and we've always bought espresso machines from La Marzocco, which is out of Ballard right there. And then Hales moved to Ballard, and a lot of great stuff coming out of there at that time, and still is.
Wow. So this story of Victory at Sea, it has so many parts to it. It has a lot of influence, because your influence branches out to a myriad of different things, and then so does Colby's and Ballast's. Now it's come together. It's become a thing. People make line for it. We have a day devoted to it. How does it feel, Arne, to have such a beautiful product that you have such an intimate relationship with out there for all these people to enjoy. You're getting a double whammy, man. You're getting the coffee that people love when they come into Calabria, and you're also getting all these people that enjoy Victory at Sea that is very much you too.
Well, it's tremendously gratifying. I'm always the idea guy a little bit, and say, let's do this, let's do that. And I suck at dotting I's and crossing T's, and other people do it way better than me. And, in this inception, I kind of was pushing this idea. And I don't know if Ballast Point had this idea before I presented it. However, I knew it took 3 years of telling Ryan, let's do this. And Colby and Jesse took it over and just nailed it,
Well, I mean, I think one of my most recent proud moments of Victory at Sea was I was down at Three Punks, and I walked in and I gave Kevin some new beers that we're putting out and some Friars Ale. And the sales guy from Smith was there. I think his nickname's Nacho. Sorry if I got that wrong. But, Kevin, of course, brings out the Friars Ale and puts it in front of him, and just kind of like edging him on because of 394 and everything. We're laughing. And he goes, all right, well, frick you guys. I'll be right back. And he runs out to his car and he brings this back.
What is that? Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Oh, Colby, I think we were first, man. I think we were first. We got to look that one up.
That sounds awfully familiar. So these guys were the inspiration kind of in a lot of ways behind Victory at Sea. They kind of helped me build the recipe, and to see them kind of come around and do the same thing. I mean, talk about full circle. Geez.
Yeah, you gave me a can of that, Colby. Bless your heart. And I cracked that open a couple of weekends ago. Holy moly, that's a beautiful beer. But it on paper, as far as the description is concerned, you would think that there's not too much difference between something like Victory at Sea and Speedway Stout, but they're completely different. Yeah. Like blind taste different. And it's just beautiful how you can make something so unique and so quaffable with the same ingredients, but it's just all about how you treat it. It's about what those ingredients are. Who's producing those ingredients? Who's treating those ingredients?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to go to Italy. I've been there probably 75 times in the last 20 years and visit a lot of wineries. And so all the brewers here, with the barrel aging, letting the beer, a beer like Victory at Sea rest for a while, and it gets better. They're taking so many beverage crafts and combining them. That's the amazing thing to watch, and that's the really cool thing of the blinders are off. They just got an open mind and they're trying crazy shit, and it's really cool to watch.
You know what goes good with Victory at Sea aged in High West barrels?
Besides everything, please tell us.
Rum.
Oh, look at you. The actual High West.
High West rye. Double rye.
Man, I got sore backs for days because of those High West barrels, dude. But it's such a beautiful thing. I developed a huge love for barrel-aged beer after that 6-month period of just back-breaking barrel turning and filling and stuff. But it really is. Oh my God.
And the aroma, just the aroma,
so beautiful. Walking into the warehouse was an experience in and of itself. Second to getting close to the brewery when they were mashing out and having that grain aroma hit you. That's probably my favorite scent in the world. Then is my morning coffee. Once I grind it and once I put it to brew, that's my second favorite. And then it has to be what a warehouse full of beautiful wood barrels filled with beer smells like.
Jeff, why is it named Victory at Sea?
I don't know.
Why not?
I was actually going to ask you that.
You don't know.
We talked about it, but I want you to say it.
Well,
you can
Arne mentioned Mike Mello and a little earlier, and he was our head sales guy at the time, and surfer. And one of the terms when you're out surfing and it's onshore wind and everything's, stormy and kind of swelly and the wind's kind of making white caps, that's victory at sea. So it became a surfing term, but originally it was actually a black and white TV show about, I think, World War II.
Yes.
The ships at sea.
Yep.
The title, the lead into the TV show was the ocean with swell and wind and, like white caps and stuff. So that's kind of where Victory at Sea came from, and the nickname for surfers, and then eventually the name of the beer.
Now, was that the first kind of dabble that our artist Paul Elder started to do with the skeleton theme?
Yeah.
Was it Victory at Sea? Was that the first one?
That was the first one.
Well,
yeah, and I think that was the first non-fish name.
yeah.
I just want to say, I think too.
It has to be.
I know we were doing
Sexton.
Piper Downs, Sexton. Yeah, I mean, like it was kind of it was definitely starting to curve off a little bit,
right?
To not necessarily all fish names, because a lot of Victory at Sea might have been the first one to keep its original name.
Right.
Because White
What
Ale,
about your name?
Wahoo, and
Yeah, there was a lot of name changes and stuff. Victory at Sea has stuck because it's such a rad name and it's just a great beer. Arne, Caffe Calabria. I don't think I know where you came up with the inspiration for that name. Why is it called Caffe Calabria? We all know why it's a cafe.
Well, just out of college, and a friend of mine, or a few years out of college, was teaching in Bologna that I went to school with, and he was back in Seattle. And I said, I'm going to go open a coffee cart in San Diego, espresso cart. Got to come up with a name. And everyone in Seattle, you got, these kind of godfathers of espresso in San Diego, like David Schilmer, Cafe Vivace, Cafe Vita. So everyone had cafe and an Italian name after. So he opened up a book with a map of Italy, spun it around. I closed my eyes, put my finger down, and I hit Calabria.
Well, so you just lucked out with the alliteration.
Good, yeah,
it rolls off the tongue very nice for a random globe plotting. That's great.
I don't know if it happened the first time.
You picked something completely different. No, let's spin it again.
Yeah, it might have happened the first time. It seems to me we had to do like 2 or 3, and okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, well, it does sound good, man.
It was just
awesome.
blind luck, yeah, just sounded good.
There's 2 things I want to talk about as far as like the grain bill on Victory at Sea, which makes it kind of different, especially 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Oats. We put a lot of flaked oats in it, which is, you think oatmeal stout, but you rarely hear oatmeal porter. And you almost never hear imperial oatmeal porter.
Right.
So again, that was kind of adding that silkiness and that body, that kind of creaminess, right? You got to have cream with your coffee. I think that's where the oats kind of came in a lot of ways. But at the time, there weren't too many dehusked malts available for us to get. Dehusk means that they roast the barley until it's so dark they almost hit it with water, or else it combusts. And it's almost the same exact roasting process for coffee beans, almost the same reactions inside the roaster.
Same with cacao.
Cacao. Yep. And then they almost like polishing rice. They run it through another machine and basically tries to strip off the husk where a lot of the tannin is. Mm-hmm. So when you have that acrid dark roast and then you have the husk on there, it makes it just super tannic, And the Carafa 2, made by Weyermann in Bamberg, Germany, was kind of the fit. And it has this kind of nice black licorice flavor to it. And I think that was kind of the base of Victory at Sea. That really helped with controlling the acidity, and building up that roastiness with the coffee without having to do it too much with the grains.
Wow.
Which I always thought was kind of a cool layering effect. And on a personal story, I went to the maltster in Bombear, Wireman. Beautiful facility. I challenge anybody to find a kernel of barley on the floor. It is very German and super clean. And the roaster was roasting carafa at the time, and he pulled it out, and I tasted it. I'm like, oh, carafa too. And he looked at me like I was like a freak of nature or something like that. He's like, you are correct. He was just so awesome. It was like Jack White was with me at the time. And I just knew it so well because of Victory at Sea and just building that recipe and just knowing the product so well. It was just so nice to just pull it right out of the roaster and taste it and just look at the roaster and go, I know exactly what this is. So,
how did he react when you told him that you used it in a vanilla coffee imperial porter?
I don't even think we got that far. I just let him dwell on an American brewer came in and picked out exactly what he was doing.
I'll tell you how it goes with me when I'm in Italy. When I come up with crazy stories like this, I'll go to a coffee roaster in Italy and share my viewpoints, and they say, I always thought my first name was Stupido and my last name was Americano. Stupido Americano.
That's what I want. Can I order that at Caffe Calabria? Is that a drink?
You know what? Oh God, I like that, Colby. We better do that. We better do. Maybe we'll make a coffee beer with that. Stupido.
That's wild. That's a wild idea, sir. Well, the thing is about this beer, and it's one of its admirable traits, is the mouthfeel. There's a lot going on, but it's not what I would call saturating in the sense that, typically for an imperial porter with coffee and vanilla, 10%er, you wouldn't think about doing a whole day devoted to drinking different varieties of this huge beer. You're going to develop palate fatigue in round two. But because of its beautiful mouth feel, its silkiness, and hopefully some water in between, it actually lends itself to be a very, very enjoyable experience for half of the time that you're there, because then you start forgetting everything else. But it's very balanced, and I think that's why people make line for something like this. It's lost its wow factor, but it's still so popular, which is to say, it's not brand spanking new. It's been around forever. So the fact that people are still making line is because it's such a damn good beer.
Whenever you get in, sorry, Arnie, real quick. Whenever you get into high alcohol, you add a lot of body. It's actually a viscosity, and you add sweetness, perceived sweetness from the alcohol. And it's hard when you're adding vanilla and you have residual sugar from the malts to not make it coin, to not make it coating,
right,
sugary. And I think that's kind of what you're getting to, Jeff, is it's the balance in there. And I hate the word drinkability, but for a 10% beer, this one goes, it's pretty dangerous.
Well, I tell you what, version 3 was so quaffable, it wasn't even funny, and it would hurt the next day. I did the math, and I'm like, I drank 322s of those last night, and that's like drinking 18 beers. I'm like, no wonder I feel like crap. But
we were able to sell it in a 6-pack for a while, and I mean, we sell it in a 6-pack rather. That's crazy. It's crazy talk. Like, this is not a bomber or a 4-pack of specialty cans. We're selling you a 6-pack, and because here's the best piece of advice that I've ever gotten. And SA gave me this advice. By SA, I mean Steven Anderson. He used to work here. He goes, you buy a case. Every round of Victory at Sea, you buy a case of it. You take 1 6-pack out to enjoy, and you tuck away the rest, and you kind of pick at it strategically. And by the time you know it, you have a cellar full of beautifully aged Victory at Sea from God knows when, and you have a 6-pack of it too. So you're able to enjoy on special occasions, and that's when this beer comes out. I haven't even opened up this bottle yet because I'm just waiting for.
That's the second version right there, I think. First or second?
Yeah, batch 17. And that's my metric when I think something's important, especially after a long night of drinking. You think everything's such a great event, and you want to pop open your finest bottle. this is my metric. It's like, how important is this right now? Is it crack open this bottle of Victory at Sea important?
Well, I don't know how it's going to taste, but it was sure fun making it.
This is Enjoy by 12514.
Yeah. This one's Enjoy by 101713 right here.
It's embarrassing that we even put that on there.
Yeah, somebody owns that, right?
That was all that's all for the distributor. No distributor. Well, I take that back now, but you couldn't go to a distributor and go, "Hey, this has a 7-year shelf life." They'd look at you and just be like, "Frick you, get out of here."
Dude, I mean,
they would seriously be like, "You're no way."
Yeah. Well, they don't understand. They don't understand why it ages so well.
We've also been doing a lot of quality on this too, Jeff, right? You know, as far as keeping up with, this 3.5-year-old beer that we're drinking, we're constantly checking it and making sure it's good. And the date, the expiration date, if there is such a thing, just keeps getting moved a little bit more because it is so strong and holding up so well.
Yeah, one of the advantages that we have of having such a top-notch quality team and the space is that we can tuck these away, and we're able to reapproach these beers and see how they're aging in real time, essentially. We do it as a fail-safe sometimes so that if you do call us up, which you can, and say that there's an issue with something or we want to hear it, if there is such a thing to have an issue with our beer, and we are able to pull it right off of the shelf where we have a little bit sitting by and we can see what's going on. Victor, I'd see though, you see the lab is a little hesitant to do it with those because let's save it a little bit longer. This ages particularly well. But
2-3 more years, easy.
Yeah. Why does it age so well though? Considering that it does have vanilla, it does have coffee in it. Why does it age the way it does?
Again, I think it's the cold brewing and the antioxidant effects to it, and also. It doesn't need the big bitterness that it has kind of when it's young and a little green, when the bitterness is the first thing to fall out of any beer. Right. And usually the aroma in the beer, I wouldn't say most of the time, but, dry hopping, the aroma fades off first, bitterness fades off second. Well, this beer doesn't have dry hopped aroma. It has bitterness, but it's more of a structured bitterness, because you have the other things bringing in structure as well onto that. So I think just having the alcohol, like you mentioned earlier, the lower hopping rates and the stability of the cold brewed coffee and the vanilla, I think that just makes it all just a great beer to lay down.
Well, and this is hats off to Ballast Point, because there's probably other ways of making it. But I said right out of the gate, if you're going to drink coffee cold, you got to make it cold. And this is, 17 years ago, 16 years ago, before the whole cold brew craze.
Right.
And I'm like, because the flavors change and the aromas change dramatically. And it costs so much more to cold brew, costs so much more. The yield is so much less, and the attention of detail, the labor that goes into it is so much more. And that's one thing about Calabria. I've never tried to compromise, and Ballast Point has never, ever compromised. And it's probably why it's such a good collaboration,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what you guys are doing over there at Calabria is not only just world-class coffee, that you've worked very diligently to achieve that perfection. Your spot is so great. I mean, it's just such a great location. It's a great facility.
When can people come? When you guys open, and when can they come get a fresh cup and take out a bag of Victory at Sea coffee blend?
Well, they can pick up Victory
right there
every day, and we sell a ton of it out of here, a ton, and Calm Before the Storm as well, the one that goes into that. Right now it's outside seating. We got the great outside in front. We've got a great balcony on the second level, which most people don't know even exists. We got a fabulous cocktail lounge on the second level that opened right before COVID, and then had to shut it down. That's a true cocktail lounge. No food, no coffee, no computers. It is a cocktail lounge.
Nice.
But right now the balcony's open. People come in and have their coffee or their pizza, their beer, their cocktail. And then on the weekends, our back patios on our liquor license on the alley, and we've upgraded that. And we've got a great DJ next door, one of our neighbors, but just a great guy, Kahana Kalama,
Nice.
who's world-class surfer, incredible DJ, and a great friend and neighbor. And so, yeah, we'll be spinning Saturday.
Spinning. Yeah.
And evidently we're supposed to open up 25% next week. And if that happens, then we'll get the cocktail lounge open upstairs.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, look, Arnie, you're doing such a great job with the coffee roasting facility. You're doing such a great job with the cocktail lounge. I've been there plenty of times. I'm in the neighborhood, so I've been there quite a bit actually. And thank you so much for being such an intricate part of what we're doing with this beer.
Well, it's just by nature, it's been fun. It's wanting to express something in something that I don't know how to express it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just a small cog part of it, and it's
Come on.
Colby and Ballast Point and Jack saying let's do this, and Yusef and Ryan being an advocate of it. That this whole thing's evolved, and it's I'm grateful and honored to be a part of it.
Arnie, do you think it should be brewed year round?
Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And it's not for personal reasons by any means. It's
Just on the record, I've been lobbying for that and to put it in cans for years.
I would totally agree.
So,
I would totally agree. Trish, who works our wholesale, our customer service and wholesale, she got a 4-pack of the salted caramel, maybe 2 4-packs.
wow.
They were sold out in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no more of these, but yeah, they were quite the hit.
I've got one left. But this you don't want to oversaturate it. You want to keep something special about it, but
Keep them thirsty.
I mean, how much Sculpin do you guys produce? And that beer is special every time you drink it, right?
Yes, to answer your question. And it lasts. Victory at Sea lasts so long. So why wouldn't you do it year round? You know what I mean? It doesn't have a shelf life necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
100%.
when I saw the craze for it, I'm like, well, you guys need to do this all the time. And
Right.
I never, I get seasonal beers, and you want to do things seasonally, but I think the demand is so there. I don't think it would saturate out by any means. I think
Not something this good.
I think there would just be more appreciation for it.
I agree with you. I agree with both of you, and I think we need to make that happen. And
Get it done,
hopefully
Jeff.
it does. What's up?
Hey, get it done. You're the man. We didn't talk about before we leave because we're running out of time quickly here. Caffeine in the beer. That's the question I actually get the most. Is how much caffeine is in Victory at Sea?
Well, Full City Roast. The lighter the coffee is roasted, the more caffeine.
Right.
And if it's Robusta versus Arabica, more caffeine in Robusta. We use all Arabica. And then it gets into extraction time and temperature. And I haven't researched cold brew and say a 23-hour extraction, how much caffeine's in there. The longer the extraction, typically the more caffeine, but cold brew is this anomaly that I thought would be easy, and it's not as easy as it appears. So in cold brew, I have no idea. But we're dealing with Arabica and we're dealing with the Full City Roast. So that's a great question, and I should try to figure that one out. Maybe I'll have to send a bottle to the lab.
I actually have the answer.
Oh,
I'm
ready.
Our amazing lab, once again, you can't give them enough credit, did a bunch of research on this, and it basically came back to half the amount of a caffeinated soda.
Yep.
Half.
Sounds about
Great.
right.
half the amount. So you drink, well, you're talking a 22-ounce bottle, kind of. So 2 12-ounce victories get you the same caffeine as one soda.
Yeah, that's not much.
No, not enough for you to say, no, sorry, I don't want to crack open that Victory at Sea. It's 10 o'clock.
Well, you
I
could
got
have
stuff
a
to do.
Red Bull or a
No.
Monster and have like 10 times as much,
You should worry more about the 10%.
Yeah. Well, now you'd worried more about the 522 calories.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's we don't put the nutritional facts on the bottle for a reason, Kobe.
It's a dessert beer, I guess.
It is a dessert beer because it's nice and sweet and you can savor it.
You had to go there.
You did.
All right. Nice talking to you, Arnie.
Hey,
Right.
Arnie,
Wait a minute.
Right. See you later.
You talk about all the complex notes of this beer and the structure of it. It's a meal in itself. So 522 calories is nothing for a meal in itself.
I will take a Victory at Sea over a Big Mac any day.
Oh, 1,000%. Hey, Arnie, dude, it was such a pleasure meeting you, man. I love your energy. I love your story. I like what you're doing. I love your passion behind not only your industry, but ours. So, the feeling's mutual. Victory at Sea Day, like I said, this year has been extended to a week. It starts February 28th. It goes through Sunday, March 7th. Swing by. Buy your tickets first before you swing by anywhere. Buy your tickets, and they're very, very limited supply. We're taking all the precautions that you need to take in this day and age, but we're going to have some, obviously, varieties of Victory at Sea, but we're also going to have some very unique swag. I think we all have a little bit of unique swag here. We're all wearing, for those of you not watching, it's all good, but this is our 2021 Victory at Sea hoodie. We're going to have, like I said, special merch that you guys can pick up. And Arnie, you going to swing by or what?
Well, I hope I'm going to get on the guest list. We'll see.
We'll see what we can do. I think you had
had
something to do with it, so we'll see what we can do.
Jeff can get us both on the guest list.
Yeah, I'm going to make Victory at Sea year round. You guys are in. I'm bringing I'll whatever you need, Arnie.
Today, he garbed me up with all kinds of stuff. I saw the skateboard. I'm like, I got to buy that. We do some cool stuff. We've done very little. I've been waiting to unleash it, but with Tony Alba, he's been in here and eats, and the guy who helps run his business is here in San Diego, and so very in touch with that scene. And
nice.
We've got some great skateboards in here. A few
very
of them.
Rad.
And when I saw the Victory at Sea skateboard, I'm like, I got to have that, and we're hanging that in the roasting room tomorrow. Can't wait.
You literally picked it up. You bought it while in the middle of our conversation. Like we were chatting, and you're like, "I gotta buy that."
Yeah,
you bought it.
Yeah. I saw it, and I'm like, "No, I have to have this." Yeah.
Well, you can't have a world-class, delicious beer without Paul Elder drawing some really, really cool artwork for it.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Well, dude, look, listen, I'll see what I could do. If anything, we will have Victory at Sea Day or not. We're definitely going to have some beers together before the year ends. Buy your tickets while you can. Supplies are limited. There's 2 different tickets that you can get, $30, $40. Log on to see what makes it different. It might be because of these. And I'm holding up some High West Victory at Sea beer. But thank you, Arnie, man. I appreciate your time.
Guys. We got to get together again, man. It's been a while.
Sounds like some Victory at Sea in our future.
Yeah. Well, let's have a meal at Calabria.
All right. Don't threaten me.
How many kids do you have now?
Oh, just one.
Just one. Okay.
Yeah.
Last time I saw you was
more than enough.
Yeah, I think when one happened.
Hey, Arnie, do you have that glass that we gave you right there with you? Just hold it up to the camera real quick. Anybody that's going to participate in Victory at Sea this time around, if you get your tickets, Arnie is holding up our limited special edition Victory at Sea glass that you'll get in your ticket package. So, dude, cheers, caballero. Thank you so much.
Thanks for not only making such a great product, but making it so great for so long and so consistently, so that we can enjoy this beer.
Anal about consistency and anal about you as well as you. So
you've helped a lot of brewers meet their mash-in times. Thank you, man.
Cheers to San Diego coffees.
San Diego coffee, San Diego beer.
Salud, caballeros.
Cheers.
All right, guys. That was amazing. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the rest of our episodes on Ballast Point's YouTube page, channel, whatever. You can follow us on ballastpoint.com, Instagram, Facebook, all that jam. I'll see you next time, and thanks for tuning in.